Thank you for coming. Today we're going to talk about Thanksgiving. And normally I give a speech that I've given many, many times. You probably recognize me as that lady that they parade out on important occasions to talk about things like protocols and manners and why there's all these forks. And maybe some of you have read my book, Opulent Occasions. But today I've been thinking a lot about what it means to be an American during this crazy time when more and more it seems that people are confused about their national identity. And so with your permission, I'd like to put my prepared speech to the side, and instead I'd like to talk to you about some new thoughts that I've been mulling over about the meaning and the importance of our holidays, and Thanksgiving in particular. But first, some statistics. The U.S. Bureau of Census says that by the year 2044, over half of all Americans are going to identify with a minority group, and 1 in 5 Americans will be foreign-born. Those are huge numbers, and that represents a huge change for our country, as well as an opportunity. And the change is obvious. I mean, change is uncomfortable. And we as Americans, we have tried and true ways of doing things, and we have beliefs and values that we've honed over hundreds of years. But there is also an opportunity, and the opportunity is in recognizing that we cannot stop the powers of change. And rather than fight the change, we need to embrace it, and we need to plan for it in positive ways. And part of this planning will be redefining our national identity, which includes how we honor each other, and what traditions we preserve from our history, and what we create anew. And as a young woman who was fiercely devoted to tradition, I remember one Thanksgiving where I was determined to put on a perfect Martha Stewart Thanksgiving. And she had us put a lattice pastry crust over our turkey, and then go out to our herb gardens to get armful of herbs for the meal, and then go to our pumpkin patch to get that pumpkin that we've been saving all summer long for Thanksgiving, and I had that pumpkin. But then she also said, go to your smokehouse to get some bacon. And I didn't have a smokehouse. I think I was feeling a little insecure at that point. And it was when she said for us to go and get a pail and harvest cranberries from our own cranberry bog, I realized it was ridiculous. That was when Martha and I had to part ways. And yet, years later, I was the one who was teaching new hosts and hostesses the fine art of entertaining and preserving those traditions that our often very class-conscious ancestors had put forth. And my book was full of do's and don'ts and cautionary tales about what would happen if you strayed from tradition. So it feels very ironic to me that as a function of writing my book, I ended up having to travel around this wonderful country of ours and meeting people as I promoted the book, and I developed a very different perspective. I realized that our future is not in clinging to the past. Americans deserve something bigger and grander than that. And I also realized that there's a dark side to some of our holiday traditions that glorify a way of living that's out of touch for most Americans. And many of our traditions are deliberately exclusionary. So what about creating some new traditions that are deliberately inclusionary? And last year, there was this piece that the New York Times did that I just loved. And it was about being an immigrant in America and celebrating your first Thanksgiving. And what they did was they interviewed a whole bunch of different families from different cultures, Laos and Vietnam and Colombia and Italy and Germany. And what they what they did was they found out that these people celebrated Thanksgiving in what they thought was such a uniquely American way, and yet what they brought to it was they infused it with their own cultures. And so we had things like turkey Cantonese style, or turkey stuffed with egg roll filling from the Philippines, or jerk spiced turkey. They created something new, and it was all wonderful. It was all new. So I propose that America has always been a country in flux. And we have demonstrated to the rest of the world that we have this amazing ability to adapt and change. And our growth and our strength have come from this mindset that we have of abundance. And we have for generations opened our arms wide to immigrants of all kinds. And our generosity has made us strong and resilient, because our strength has always been rooted in our diversity. So what does that mean for us? What does that mean for you? You came here tonight thinking that you were probably going to learn how to set the perfect table, or why it's really important to always use beeswax candles, or how to architect the perfect Thanksgiving dinner. And what you got instead was my thoughts about celebrating and appreciating life in a way that draws us together, as opposed to elevating to an art form the idealization of a golden age that really never existed. So I propose that we revamp all of our holiday traditions, and instead of trying to preserve the traditions of our Puritan forefathers, we should be looking into the future and embracing the change that's already happened. And we should use Thanksgiving as a jumping off point for reestablishing our identity and making it more resemble the people that actually live here. Because there will be no such thing as an average American. But by reworking our traditions, we can declare to ourselves and to the world that we are a country of immigrants, and we love our diversity. Thank you, and good night.